Hello, back again. Okay, today we're talking about boundaries, and someone asked, how do I incorporate healthy boundaries with someone I care about? Someone, that means a lot to me. So it's interesting with boundaries because boundaries are a symptom. If you have healthy boundaries, you probably have good self-esteem, good self-worth. You respect yourself, you honour yourself, you're in alignment with yourself, meaning your head and heart are kind of in alignment. People who struggle to have healthy boundaries, usually it's because they have low self-worth, they're not confident, they might have low self-esteem. They actually don't think they have a right. Usually healthy boundaries is a byproduct of well-being, of healthiness. So if you're struggling to actually incorporate boundaries, then that tells me that there's something underlying that, because people who know they're worthy and they deserve to be respected tend to not struggle. But if you do have issues around those things, then you sometimes don't feel like you have a right to say no. Now usually that's because, you've been brought up in an environment where, you had to be a good little girl, boy. And so it's my job to please everybody else. It's my responsibility to meet everyone else's needs. I'm responsible for your happiness. Now, that's what gets subtly or not so subtly programmed into us at a very young age. When your parents would say, you make me angry. What's the thing is, you're responsible for my anger. You're responsible for my feelings. And this is why we grow up feeling responsible for other people's feelings. So I need to do what you need me to. I will then do what you need me. Okay, let me say that again. I will do what you need me to do because I'm responsible for your feelings. I haven't got a right to say no. My happiness isn't important. What I need, maybe I don't even know what I need or want. You see, it's hard to have healthy boundaries if you don't know yourself, if you don't know what you need and want, if you don't know your own reality. And we talked about this in other videos. You have to know your own reality. Well, I don't really want to do this before I can actually say no. And let me talk about me, because this is something I really struggled with, because I would say yes when I meant no. I wouldn't have healthy boundaries, and I've talked about this in other videos, because, on some level we're all conditioned and programmed to meet everyone else's needs, and I need to make mum and daddy happy so I can feel safe, right? So everyone else is more important than me. So I don't know what I feel, what I want and what I need, but I know how everyone else feels and what they need, and I'm responsible. And so it is hard to then incorporate and say no, because to say no means I might upset you. If I say no to something that you want from me or you need from me or you want me to do, then I might upset you, and then I'll feel bad because I've upset you. And this is why boundaries is a symptom of health and well-being. Boundaries is a symptom that you are comfortable enough and realize that you're not responsible for everyone else's emotions outside of you. You're really only responsible for your emotions. And this is something people really have to get their head around. I know when you do have to get your head around this, because we've been conditioned, we've been brainwashed. No. So if you say to a couple, I know when I work with couples, I say to one of them, you're not responsible for their happiness. That's not what we've been told. And you hear it. I heard it on the telly. Oh, I need to make her happy. No, that's insanity. We are all responsible for our own happiness. And this is where I think what we've been taught and what we've been told and what we believe isn't working for us. And you see this in, if anyone watches maths, and I actually find it quite fascinating to watch that, because this is how couples are doing relationships, and it's actually quite staggering to watch it. And when they say things like, oh, I'm responsible to make you happy, I just kind of cringe. I'm like, gee whiz, like, really? No, that's why no one's happy. If I'm looking after your emotions, well, who's looking after mine? not anyone's job. I am the only one that knows what makes me happy. I'm responsible for my emotions. So don't get me wrong. You're responsible to each other, yes, but not for each other. And there's a big difference there. And so this is like, because you might say, oh, I want to do something and I don't want to do it, but I know you're not going to like it if I say, no, I don't want to do it. So I've got a decision there. I either betray myself and go and do it, or I say, no, I don't want to do it and upset you. And the thing is, we've been conditioned to do that. We've been conditioned to do what everyone else wants us to do. So to say no, you see, healthy boundaries is about being able to give a no and take a no. Give a no and take a no. So I have to be able to hear a no and not feel like it's a rejection of me. Because what I would do is I would over-identify with somebody else. And so if someone said to me something like, oh, do you want to go out for coffee? I would feel like, oh, I'd over-identify with how they might feel if I said no. Well, they might feel disappointed. And so therefore I didn't want to disappoint them and I didn't want to feel uncomfortable. So I'd say yes, even though it might not be something I actually really wanted to do, because it was never about me. It was always about everybody else. And I would betray myself. So I'd say yes to things that I didn't really want to go. So my head would say yes and my heart would say no. And then I wondered why I was resentful and angry and frustrated and miserable. Because I was always doing what my body and my heart didn't really want to do. So, for example, I was in a church environment for many years. So they'd say, oh, Stella, would you hand out these leaflets? And I remember I have actually talked about this. I just had a grief experience. And of course, my initial reaction was to say yes. I didn't even think about it. I just went, oh yeah. Because I've never been given permission to say no. Well, what does that mean if I said no? Oh, I'm a bad person. Oh, I'm not kind. I'm not friendly. I'm not... What? It doesn't say anything about me unless I say it does. Instead of going, actually, I've just had a major grief experience. I'm really not in the mood to do that. I really don't think I can do that. You'll have to ask somebody else. Well, I ended up getting really angry. Literally throwing them back in her face, I think, going, no, I can't do this, and walking off and feeling frustrated with her she doesn't know what's going on in my life. It's not her job to look after my emotions. It's my job. And this is why to put in boundaries means you have to know that you're important, you're worthy, and you have to learn to say no, and you have to learn how you actually feel and let go of needing to take responsibility for everyone outside of you. So come back to you. And this is, I'm sure all my clients get sick of me. Come back to you. Come back to you. How do you feel? What do you want? What do you need? So, yeah, it's not easy telling someone who's kind of quite unwell to say no to people, because that's really difficult. But when you know that you're deserving, you're worthy, and it's actually your responsibility, because if you don't, what's going to happen? I'm going to say yes when I mean no. Now, obviously some things are bigger than others. And I always talk about this when I talk to people about boundaries, especially, I think, for women and men, but sometimes for women more so. If your husband says, I would like to make love to you or have sex, and you say yes with your head because it's, I should, I must, but your heart's no, you've actually betrayed yourself and you're doing something you don't want to do. And I'm telling you, when you do that, you do not create a place of safety within you. So you keep doing that over and over again, and you not only betray yourself, but you also betray the person that you've said yes to, because you're not honouring how you feel. If someone invites you out, but you don't actually really want to go, so you say yes with your head and no with your heart, what do you think is going to happen when you get there? And this is something I did. I just automatically said yes. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even give myself a moment. No, yes. That's what I would condition to do. You do as you're told, and you do it now, and you don't ever say no. Because you got a good hiding if you said no. If Mum said, want to tidy up your room, and you said no, you get a good hiding. I mean, it's not like that now, but not that long ago, you had to do as you were told. And it's such a dangerous game, because I realise how hard it is for parents. Because if your kids are never allowed to say no, what do you think is going to happen when they're in the playground and someone offers them a drug or says, let me touch you inappropriately? You're setting them up to be abused. You are setting your children up by not allowing them to say no. And this is where it gets tricky, because you want them to do what you want them to do. And so it's not easy, and I'm not saying any of this is, because I don't think it is, but you have to use wisdom, and you have to use discernment, and you have to respect your kids. And this is why there are ways that you can work with your children where you give them an element of freedom, but also you are having healthy boundaries. So, for example, if you're very dictatorial as a parent, no, I want you to clean your bedroom now. See, I think that's very dictatorial. That's not very respectful. If you said to your kids, look, I need you to tidy your room and I'm going to give you to the end of the week or the end of the day to do it, but you do it in your own time, I would appreciate that. Thank you. So you're appreciating this is their job, this is their responsibility, and you're giving them, you're not going, no, you need to do it right now. That is not respectful. So there's ways of working with kids, and I don't want to get into how you talk to your kids. This is about grown-ups. I think the question was asked with people, but you see, if you're working with, if someone's asked you to do something and they've got really unhealthy boundaries, and believe me, unhealthy people attract unhealthy people like a lock and a key, and they go together, right? And so someone who's very needy will often find someone that needs to be needed, and if you get off on needing to be needed, then you love helping people, but it's not always because you want to help people. Sometimes it's because that's what you've been conditioned to do. And so it's about you waking up to the fact that you perhaps don't know your own reality. You haven't got good self-worth, good self-esteem. You don't think that highly of yourself. Everyone's more important than you. And sometimes you don't know how you feel and what you want and what you need. And so you need to learn that stuff first. You need to figure out, well, what is it I do want? What is it I do need? Do I really want to do that? Or do I really want to say yes? You know, maybe friends invite you out for dinner and, I don't know, maybe you've other plans, or maybe, but you don't want to let them down. You don't want to disappoint them. So you say yes and you kind of cancel those other things because that, you know, it was something that you've just arranged to do on your own, but that can wait. And so you betray yourself to meet the needs of another. That's not going to work. That's you betraying yourself. And you do that, you form this disconnect with yourself. You betray yourself. You don't feel safe inside your own body. That's what causes anxiety. Because that part of you, it's like no one's listening to that part of you because you're too busy trying to meet everyone else's needs. So if you're with someone that you are struggling to say no, then you've got to look a bit deeper. What's the fear? What if you said no to them? What would it mean? Would they be angry with you? Would they punish you by not talking to you? Would they reject you? Would they abandon you? Would they get the hump with you? And so what you realize, you've got a boundary buster on your hands, and they cannot hear the no, and guess what, you can't say the no. So when you're learning to do the work, accept self, figure it out, come through for yourself, stop betraying yourself, stop letting go of needing the approval of everybody around you, realizing you're not responsible to meet everyone else's needs. You're not responsible to make everybody happy. You're only responsible to you, because you're the only one that can. And how many people do I work with, and they're exhausted and they're miserable and they're depressed, and they tell me about their lives, and I go, wow, they're so busy trying to meet everyone else's needs that they've totally disregarded their own. But they don't even know their own needs because it's never been about them. So sometimes these are survival stances. I survived because I was very aware of what everyone else needed. And so that's a coping mechanism that no longer is working for you because you know you're a grown-up and your survival doesn't depend on meeting the needs of everybody else. But if you've got into a pattern with someone where they are a bit of a boundary buster and you have got, we call them flimsy boundaries, where your boundaries aren't really solid and secure because you actually don't even know what you want and what you need sometimes. And the biggest thing that gets in the way of you have people saying no when they need to say no is guilt and anger. Two things that are going to show up big time. I feel guilty. I feel bad. I feel like I've done something wrong. Challenge that. What have you done wrong? What have you done wrong? Have you done something wrong because you've said, no, I don't actually want to do that? No, I don't want to go there. No, I don't want to do this with you. See, that's toxic guilt. Guilty is a very normal feeling. If you've done something wrong, a person will feel guilty. That is a normal feeling that you'll feel if you've done something wrong. So if you knock someone over or you steal something and then feel guilty, that's good. That tells you that you're a human being and you care. But if you feel guilty because you've said no to someone, then that's toxic guilt. You haven't done anything wrong. Saying no to someone is not wrong. It's about giving yourself permission to not need that person's approval. It's about owning your own emotions. It's about that part of you that feels guilty. That little girl or little boy inside you that feels guilty. And you have to say to that part of you, it's okay, you haven't done anything wrong. See, this is something that needs to get rewired in, because it's going to come up every time you say no. You're going to feel guilty because that's what you've been taught. That's what you've been programmed to do. You meet everyone else's needs. Don't you dare say no to me. Don't you dare say no. I hope this is making sense, because boundaries is a symptom. So if you struggle to say no, you've got to really look at what is driving that. It's psychodynamic theories looks at the underlying issues. Psychology will just look at the symptoms and teach you how to say no, but I actually think that's really hard. Yes, teach someone how to say no, but teach them to understand that they have the right to say no, that they are worthy, that they are important. You have to rewire that in. And then boundaries, I mean, for me, I didn't get taught some of this. I actually taught myself it. I realized every time I said yes when I meant no, I got angry, resentful, and I either beat myself up or get pissed off with everybody else. And I realized I did that. And I did that until in the end I was like, what am I doing? What am I afraid of? What is my fear of saying no to this person? Sometimes it's a person you don't even know. Sometimes it's about a person you don't even care about that much. It's not just some stranger. You know, when you're walking along and someone says, oh, come and buy this. You know those people that want to sell you stuff when you're in the shopping centre? If I got, you know, cajoled into coming over, I would really struggle to say no. And so you got to know yourself. I don't know what you're like. You know yourself. Like, what you like. Are you someone that struggles to say no? Okay, so for me, I have some strategies, and I still have these strategies. I never say yes to anything straight away. Never. I always say, let me check with my husband. Let me check with my diary. I'm not sure. I think I might be busy that day. Because I want to give myself an opportunity to think about, do I actually really want to do that? Because I don't want to betray me, and I certainly don't want to betray someone who is possibly a friend. So if a friend says, oh, so I never pick up the phone. I always let it go to answer machine. If I do, you know, oh, do you want to do this? I go, just give me a minute. I'll have to check that out first. I'll have to talk to my husband, or, you know, check my diary. I don't usually take my diary anywhere unless I'm at work. And so I always give myself that moment to think about what it is that I really want. Because if I don't do that, I will be out of alignment and I will not feel good. I will get angry and frustrated, and I've got issues with anger. So I need to protect myself from anger that I'm causing myself, which is, you know, just becomes resentment, which left unchecked becomes rage. So boundaries is obviously something you can practice over time. And I'll often, when I work with people, we rewire the mind, we rewire the way they relate to their emotions. So if they do feel guilty, they don't do the usual reject, deny and avoid. They embrace that guilt, they sit with it, and they talk to that part of themselves. They listen to that part of themselves. We don't let it run the show. And so this is something you need to practice. And I always say to people, practice with the people that you know that will be better accepting your no. Another thing I might say to someone especially if they're in a relationship, I might say to the person, I might say, I want you to go home and tell your partner, your husband, your wife, that you're practicing healthier boundaries because you realise you struggle with healthy boundaries, and I need some support, and I'm just wondering, would you help me practice healthy boundaries? So if I say no to you, can you just be okay with that? Can you just give me some leeway with that, especially if it's someone that you're afraid might struggle with your no? Because often, more times than not, if we are struggling with boundaries, we call it someone who's flimsy boundaries, you actually attract boundary busters. And so they might not like it if you start to say no to them. In fact, they might get very upset with you and actually get quite angry and nasty. Now, this is where we become very vulnerable, because if I've been abandoned as a child and I'm terrified of abandonment, and I say no to someone that probably won't like my no, and they start to withdraw from me, I'm going to get triggered with feelings of abandonment. Does that make sense? And so we just sort of kowtow. We just kind of, oh no, it's okay, I'll do it. You know, because we're terrified. We're terrified of them withdrawing love from us. We're terrified of being abandoned or rejected. We're terrified of being alone. And so, I'll do what you want me to do. That is giving your power away. You're giving your power away to all these people, perhaps. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but it could be happening. And so you need to understand it's not as simple as being able to say no. It's about what stops you from saying no. What will happen if you do say no to that person? What is your fear around you stepping up and figuring out what you want and saying no to some of this stuff? See, boundaries, sometimes we've got rigid boundaries, like brick walls, thick brick walls. Or sometimes we haven't got hardly any boundaries. So we call it, rigid boundaries and flimsy boundaries. Neither works. And it's about understanding sometimes if we have flimsy boundaries, we might actually go the other way and then have rigid boundaries. So some people are scared to walk out the door. So they put these big boundaries, they stay indoors, they don't go out because they're terrified that they might be asked to do something they don't want to do. And they rather than be able to say no, they just don't put themselves out there. They just build a brick wall to try and keep them safe. But all it does is isolate them. All it does is keep them stuck. So neither works. Neither allows you to feel free. Neither allows you to breathe. And so it's a big subject. It's a big topic, and I'm sure there's loads of things that I haven't talked about that I really want to talk about. And sometimes it's not until you play it back and you think more about it that I realise, I wanted to talk about that. Boundaries is a big one. It's a symptom. And if you are struggling to say no, then probably you have childhood trauma, complex childhood trauma. And you need to get some deeper help. You need to go underneath that, just the symptom of not being or struggling to say no. So asking yourself some good questions. When is it hard for me to say no? Who is it hard for me to say no to? What's the fear about me saying no? Do I even know my own reality? Do I know what I want and what I need? And that's another thing, those are people that have struggled. We don't even know what we want and need. So we go along with everybody else. And sometimes it's not till afterwards. And I go, I didn't know if I really wanted to do that. But I just went along with it because I didn't really know what I wanted or needed. I say to some people it's easier to know what you don't want than to know what you do want. And so sometimes we need to start there. My husband, he'll say, where do you want to go for dinner? And I'll go, I don't know. And he'll go, you want to go there? I'll go, no. I know I don't want to do that, but I don't know what I do want. And so he gets a bit like, well, just tell me what you want. Well, I don't know, but I know what I don't want. And some of us need to start where you're at. And so start where you're at. Figure out what you don't want. And maybe that will help you figure out what you do want. Anyway, I hope that is helpful. Boundaries is a big subject. We could talk about it for hours, but I've already done 24 minutes, so that's long enough. But if there's any other questions that come out of this, anything else you want me to talk about, then please reach out, send me a message, or just put it in a comment. Thank you for listening if you're still here. Be brave, be courageous, do what you need to do, figure it out. Things are getting tougher all the time here on planet Earth, and the more you can know and understand yourself, the easier, the better it will be. Anyway, all for now. Take care. Bye.